So in this logged area, I've managed to find quite a few stinging nettle. You can see them over here, and there's a patch of it kind of growing in amongst all this dead stuff. And it's springtime, so the stinging nettle have just started to come out of the ground. And basically, usually when you're harvesting stinging nettle, the top leaves are usually fresher. The smaller leaves usually taste better than the bigger leaves. With it being springtime, probably any or all of the leaves are pretty decent. When you get later on in the season, you do want to be harvesting some of the top leaves more and kind of picking and choosing the types of leaves that you're getting, because later on in the season, the leaves aren't as good to eat, but they're still edible regardless. So I'm going to get down and start collecting a bunch of the stinging nettle. So I did manage to get a really good supply of stinging nettles. I could continue to collect it and fill up this whole bag, but I don't really need to supplement that much food. So we'll continue to look around for a few more wild edibles, but it's not that big of a deal if I don't find any more. So we can always just cook up the stinging nettle. Well, we have a pine tree here, and I believe it is shore pine. So I'm going to throw this in the pot along with the stinging nettle just to add a little bit of a flavor to it. So I'll just prune off like the tip of one of the branches so I'm not doing too much damage to the actual tree itself. Now that we've collected a few things, I'm going to go head into the forest over there, and we're going to start up a fire and cook what we collected. Well, I thought I heard some running water. I didn't find this last time I came out here, but I could hear the faintest of trickles and I just followed it. It's a really nice score. It's nice to know that there's some water running through this patch of forest. It goes down to the ocean right there. Did you fall in the water, Mollie? So I'm going to go set my fire up somewhere around here, just a little bit back from the river. Stream, sorry. In my tips video, I said that I like to carry around some budgies just for this purpose. It's a little bit damp right now, and it just allows the bag to be off of the wet ground, and it's really quick and easy to set up. That's a pretty good base stone. Right here is a wild edible that is pretty much a survival food. Found a little snail when I overturned this rock. I'm not going to cook them up because I don't need to eat them. If I was in a survival situation and I was looking for some survival food, this guy would definitely be on the menu. Kind of the rule with critters and creepy crawlies like this is that it's always best to cook and boil them first, as they can harbor bacteria that is bad for you. They can feed on things that are poisonous to humans, especially things like slugs. and snails can also do that too. So it's always good to cook them up and then take their guts out if you can. So I'll just get my fire going in here, have a small fire, try to boil up the nettle, and that will be pretty much what I'm going to be doing. I think it's starting to rain a little bit, and I want to try to beat any heavy rainfall that happens. Before you start taking down a tree, first test, make sure you look at the very top and see this is actually a live tree. But it's also important that you try to see if the top is rotten or not, because when you're cutting, there's a chance for that top to break off and fall on your head. So always make sure that if you're using your axe, that you're using it on a solid piece of wood. So like usual, I don't really need a big fire to do this. And there's this little dead standing wood that's up against a larger tree. And I think that's going to be my target because it's just enough wood. It should be dry on the inside. And it will give me enough fuel to boil up my nettles. Sometimes you don't need an axe or a saw, you can just push it over. Well, we're starting to rain a bit. So let's get this going. Nice and dry on the inside. This log's quite solid. Just get rid of some of that moss. And I'll be able to do my axe splitting on there probably. Yeah, that'll be good. Now we're starting to rain. It hasn't picked up like crazy amounts yet, but it'll definitely get there soon. So using my hat, I'm going to make some shavings with my axe, and I'll use my hat to collect it. Because it is wet right now, I do kind of need to have some variety of shavings, coarse and fine. The axe seems to produce some nice coarse shavings. So I'm going to hit my homemade fire starter with my ferro rod. Find some fluffed up bit. Get it lit. Start putting some of the feather sticks on. some of the other pieces of wood. Get on there before it's too late. Well, that's the reality of rushing in wet weather, is that it didn't work. The fire went out. So I'm going to try something else. I grabbed a bundle of little thin branches off of some trees, and I did find some kind of rotten looking fat wood, but you know what, this might work, and I'm going to try this now instead. Try lighting this fat wood now with my ferro rod. Try getting some of the other fat wood going. Well, let's see if it works this time. Well, I see fire starting to come in. Starting to come out of the top. Oh, there's a sight for sore eyes. Okay, cool. So I got the fire going. Now I'm just going to fill this cup up with my stinging nettle, and then I'm going to pour some water in it. I've also got my little pine bud there that will maybe help flavor the water or something. So I'll fill it up and get that on the fire right away. So I just moved a few things around and I put it directly on the fire. And I just have a stick and I'm just watching it, sitting by the fire and, you know, moving it around, making sure that it's right in the flame so I can get a quick boil going. This is probably the fastest way to get your water to boil up. You just have to be very careful not to spill your water in your fire and ruin all the hard work that you did. You see now that I got a boil going on in there. I'm going to let it boil for a while. Make sure all those hairs, those stinging hairs on the stinging nettle are completely done. So, you know, maybe like 5-10 minutes or something like that, a boil like this. Basically when it gets to a texture of like spinach, that's probably what I can compare it to, is just some spinach. So I'm going to let it boil up like this for a while. Well, I'll be the first to say that Mother Nature doesn't care what your schedule is. If it's going to rain on you, it's going to rain on you, even if you need to be somewhere. So I managed to get my fire going. It was hard. Because I only have a limited amount of time out here, I tried to kind of rush the little prep with the little stuff. So that's why my first attempt failed. And that ended up, you know, I ended up having to try to scramble to get that second attempt to work. So I did manage to get it, and my nettles are all boiled up, and they taste really good. It's a really good wild edible. If you haven't tried eating stinging nettle, I highly suggest it. It tastes pretty much like spinach, is the best equivalent that I would say. So anyways, I hope you liked this video and it gave you a little bit of the reality of bushcraft sometimes. It is hard to get a fire going when it is wet and you're rushing, so try not to rush. Anyways, hope you guys have a good day. It's Dave from BC Bushcraft.